Cybersecurity is a software quality problem. Think about that for a moment. The entirety of the industry, network security and firewalls, endpoint security on our device, data security platforms, all of this is ultimately in existence because we need to secure the foundation of the
You were at Palo Alto Networks building this massive business, 300 million ARR. What was the moment which defined this conviction that, hey, I'm going to go ahead and build this?
little incident called SolarWinds happened. When SolarWinds software got compromised, essentially created a ripple effect into every company on the planet that was a SolarWinds customer.
So does that mean the way coding is being done is changed forever?
Look, the next 12, 18 months, 80% of the code will be produced by AI agents.
So you're writing for that world where the code is being produced autonomously. Is Endor Labs equipping for that world?
Yes, 100%.
What is Varun's playbook? How does he do it?
I think it comes down to fundamentals.
So Varun, here you're building this amazing product. What is the market size we're looking at? Welcome to another fantastic episode of Control Alt Podcast, where we bring visionaries from Silicon Valley. What kind of visionaries? Visionaries who are landscaping the technology as we see. Today we have with us a cybersecurity legend who has built 3 amazing cybersecurity startups leveraging 3 platform shifts: the cloud, the multi-cloud, and now AI for coding. So AI for coding has caught on like wildfire in the last 18 months. How are these code bases being secured? What are we doing about the open source code bases and the developers? Who's taming them? The bad actors are getting as powerful as the good actors. So who's disciplining and what are the aspects to be disciplined? To break this all down for us, we have with us Varun Badhwar. Varun, welcome to Control Alt Podcast.
Vida, thanks for having me. I'm so excited.
Here you are the CEO and founder of Endor Labs. Such a fascinating campus you built here. And Endor, one of the most famous Star Wars characters fighting for good. You're bringing in that energy. Tell us all about Endor Labs and take us back in time on what got you started on the serial entrepreneur journey.
Sounds good. So Endor Labs was started in 2021 with the whole idea that software development is completely getting revolutionized. We think about it as software development, but in reality, it's more software assembly. Our developers, just like we go to the grocery store, pick up ingredients and quickly cook a meal, are doing the same with applications. They're going out to the internet, they're seeing what reusable components exist, grabbing them and assembling all of this together. And over the last 12 months, this has become even more powerful with AI coding agents coming to the forefront and allowing you to actually use these assistants to code even faster. But there's one thing that's common behind all of that, which is all of this code, whether it's open source or what coding agents from AI perspective are writing code on, it is all free for all, use at your own risk, code that's freely available on the internet. We don't understand the intentions of the people that have produced that code. We don't necessarily understand the security implications of using that code. There are no contractual obligations on the quality and the SLAs for support and everything else. And thereby, as organizations are using all of this to ship code faster than ever before, it is also more insecure than ever before. And Jen Easterly, who used to run the CISA for the Biden administration, said this really well, that cybersecurity is a software quality problem. Think about that for a moment. The entirety of the industry, network security and firewalls, endpoint security on our devices, data security platforms, all of this is ultimately in existence because we need to secure the foundation of the software which has bugs and vulnerabilities. And so the Endor mission is pretty simple. We want to allow organizations to innovate as fast as they can, ship software as quickly as they can, but we want to make it secure by default. And traditionally, the cost of securing software has been extremely high. The burden, the toll, the tax on that. And we're basically making it a no-brainer. We're integrating it such that security is just a default pattern in shipping and producing software applications.
So Varun, here you're building this amazing product. What is the market size we're looking at?
It's a very interesting question you asked me that today, because if you asked me this a couple of years ago, I'd say, look, there's 20 million-ish professional developers out there. Every one of them produces code. Every one of those should need a license for Endor Labs because we need to secure the code that they produce and help them accelerate their mission. Today with vibe coding, there's a 20 million become 40 million developers, 80 million developers, north of 200 million developers. The upper bounds are unknown.
Yeah.
But it's quite limitless because you and I and everybody around us today can theoretically produce an application and create software. And so we believe like this market is a massive, massive opportunity. And especially if you can kind of integrate security where it just becomes a no-brainer. The cost implications of doing things securely the right way just become a no-brainer. Because traditionally, security and application development have been at odds, right? You can either ship fast or you can write secure code. We are saying it's not a trade-off anymore. We're creating the technology to actually make it a default way to build software. And we're going to get more into that, but the whole idea is if it's not an afterthought, then it's natively integrated, and thereby you have lower costs of maintenance and security and everything else down the road.
Wonderful. So this idea obviously didn't come to you when you were casually doing something. You have felt the pain point. This was not like an aha moment. It didn't come out of nowhere. What was a moment where you felt this pain and you were at Palo Alto Networks building this massive business, 300 million ARR Prisma Cloud business, which was again from the acquisition of your second startup, Redlocks. So what was a moment which defined this conviction that, hey, I'm going to go ahead and build this? And how did you know this market was going to blow up?
We should take the viewers a little bit back and give some of the history. So to your point, I was building a company called Redlock. I had started it in 2015. I had sold it to Palo Alto Networks in 2018. That became the foundation of cloud security in a massively growing market of where people were moving from data centers to AWS, Azure, GCP, and the like. Life was great, hunky-dory. I was building this incredible business. We had gone 0 to 300 million ARR in pre-AI times. I mean, that was unheard of in 3 years. But in 2021, this little incident called SolarWinds happened. And it was branded a software supply chain security incident. But essentially, what it highlighted is thousands of companies that were using software from SolarWinds. When SolarWinds software got compromised, essentially created a ripple effect into every company on the planet that was a SolarWinds customer, including Palo Alto Networks, including our organization. That kind of raised our awareness to say, well, look, if it can happen to them, it can happen to us. Palo Alto Networks was a critical, and is a critical software supplier for tens of thousands of companies out there. And I wanted to make sure within Prisma Cloud too that we were kind of buttoned up and we wouldn't be the next SolarWinds. And as we started digging deeper, that's kind of where this revelation for me came, which is, here we are hiring the best engineers on the planet, doing background checks, rigorous interviews. The goal is like they're going to write great code, but they are relying on 80-90% of the code in our application base was code that wasn't even written by them, that they were quickly picking off the internet. And it's a bit like you've locked your doors, but you've left your windows open in software, which is, we had no vetting process. We had no contracts, no SLAs, because this is open source software. It's like use at your own will. And at the end of the day, we had hundreds of thousands of these alerts of theoretical security problems in this code, but the developers did nothing with it. And when I probed, like, why were we not acting on this data and information from the security tools that were scanning that software, it turned out that 80 to 90% of the results that the security tools were claiming were problems were not real problems. And so then kind of as I peeled the layers of the onion, it kind of became very clear that software security and application security as we knew of it was broken. It was broken because somebody was building software, somebody else was scanning it. The scanning tools did not have the context of the software being built. They were mostly designed for compliance, like, hey, let me just find problems and throw them over the fence back to engineering, and they'll go in a ticket backlog, and maybe somebody will fix them someday. And months and years would go back and nobody would do anything. And when I probed my network, it became clear this is not a specific problem to Palo Alto Networks. This is a universal industry-wide problem. And that took me down the path of saying there's got to be a better way to solve this problem. We did that with cloud security. We created the best platform. We now needed to find a way to actually remove the tax of security and software development. The biggest problem with application security being broken, the reason was the amount of noise there is in the system with, let's say, 500 or 1,000 developers getting 100,000 security notifications of issues in code. And at that point, you just start ignoring all of this. And we had to find a better way to have much higher precision in what we were finding, we needed to make sure we can back it by evidence so developers know it's a real problem. And we needed to go take it all the way to not just detect and report, but to fix.
Yeah.
And that's essentially the genesis of Endor Labs and what we deliver for our customers, which is on average, when customers move from existing tools to Endor Labs for securing their software, we will typically reduce the volume of issues we find by about 92%, and will help them fix it 4 to 6 times faster than they previously have been.
Yeah, so this was hard for you in a larger company because of the legacy systems, or is this because you wanted more your own autonomy to build a product like this? How does this work? Because this seems like you could have built a bunch of products inside the company, which is what most large companies do, like Cisco does that, or Palo Alto probably does that. But why did you have to step aside? Did you have to build something from scratch? Or
Sure. Yeah, look, I think the software and application security space is just entirely different from cloud security and what I was building from the Palo Alto Networks perspective. The way I think about security is, you have certain domains and you have certain expertise within those domains.
Yeah.
Palo Alto's first product, the claim to fame is a firewall on the network, right?
Mm-hmm.
Redlock allowed them to produce a sensor for cloud and be able to provide and solve a set of use cases, dozens of them, related to cloud because we had a sensor for the cloud.
Mm-hmm.
Palo Alto Networks did not have a code sensor, and what we needed to go solve the application and software security problems was an entirely different domain where I had to go hire a completely different set of folks from a engineering perspective all the way to kind of the go-to-market function. The workflow, the integrations of code are frankly just different. And I believed it would be much faster and more effective, especially since we were going to go challenge a legacy market of incumbents that have existed for decades, attempting to solve that problem rather poorly, that we needed the freedom, autonomy, and speed and focus to go solve for that.
Yeah, so does that mean the way coding is being done is changed forever? It's not going to go back?
Look, coding has continued to evolve and will probably continue to evolve over time. I would say a decade ago, we were writing 50-70% of the code ourselves as developers. Then 4 or 5 years ago, around the time where Endor started, the mega trend was that 80% of the code was open source. And what I'll say today is you're going to start seeing the shift where probably in the next 12, 18 months, 80% of the code will be produced by AI agents that are going to be working in conjunction with your developers in your organization. And maybe another year, 2, 3, 5 from there, we hope to get to AGI, in which case, the software might be autonomously produced. So I think it's an incredibly exciting time to see the revolution of software development.
So you're writing for that world where the code is being produced autonomously. Is Endor Labs equipping for that world? Or
Yes, 100%. So here's the commonality between open source and AI. It turns out that everything that is AI needs training data. Guess where AI coding agents have to go get their training data from? They train on all of the code on the internet. So they train on all of the open source code on GitHub, Stack Overflow, all of these practices. It turns out that the code there is not necessarily good code always, and AI tools don't know how to distinguish the good practices from the bad practices, right? There's not a lot of synthetic data that helps them train the good and differentiate and distinguish from the bad. That's where companies like Endor come in, because as I was mentioning to you earlier, for the last 4 years, our entire focus has been studying intimately all of the code that exists on the internet, on GitHub and such platforms, and being able to classify and tag what is good versus what is poor practices on security and quality and engineering and release. And so we sit on incredibly powerful, unique data, which if work in conjunction with these AI coding agents that don't have that information, can actually steer the AI coding agents to avoid the pitfalls of producing and replicating all of the security and quality problems back to you. So statistically speaking, about 50 to 60% of lines of code produced by AI coding agents are insecure or written with bugs and other quality problems. What we have seen and what we have found and we publish research on, When you take Endor's context and you feed that to the coding agent, it can actually do the right things because we're providing it that rich context that it didn't have at training point.
Yeah.
And so the partnership of the coding agent producing code and Endor working as a security pair programmer in that interaction really helps you get the speed, harness the power of AI, but do it without the security pitfalls. And that goes back to the security by default mantra that we have and reducing the cost and the toll of doing it.
No, this is great. I think we need new curriculums in computer science to groom the future on how to tame the code. This is a different kind of computer science we're talking about. But then coming back to what you were just talking about, you use the word peeling the layers. I want to double click on that. You use the term reachability, is that right? What does reachability mean? Like, why are the vulnerabilities hidden? Why can't you see them in traditional programming platforms or the security solutions?
Yeah, so let's go back to a little bit of a history on the traditional security solutions. Look, code scanning as an industry has existed for about 20 years or so. When these tools were initially created, let's call it Gen 1 of these tools, they would take 24, 48, 72 hours to scan a full application code, and then they would produce 800 to 1,000 pages of PDF reports that somebody had to parse through. So what that automatically meant is you would never run these tools in a developer workflow. You would build your classic waterfall of build an application, then it would go into a security review process. That would take several weeks, and then there'd be dozens of people and consultants working through these lists, ignoring a bunch of stuff, and at some point the code would ship months later, but it was extremely, extremely slow. Then Gen 2 tools came around that says, you know what, we'll find a way to make these tools faster, but in doing so, we will even further compromise on the quality and fidelity of the results. So they traded off speed for accuracy, and so the accuracy got worse, but the speed got better. So you could now theoretically run them in a developer workflow, but they were generating so much noise that at the end of the day, they were still unusable.
So that's the alert fatigue you talked about.
That's the alert fatigue
which you're going to completely take out or almost take out with your current solutions.
So then with Endor, if you want to classify us as a Gen 3 approach to this problem, what we really went and understood deeply is where is the problem? Technically, the problem of noise was caused by the fact that it turns out 88% of the lines of code that exist in your code repositories, in your software repositories, in the companies like in your GitHub, in your GitLab environments, actually don't get used in the context of your application. So they're there, they're dormant. Even if I report vulnerabilities, even if I fix vulnerabilities, they don't really change your risk posture, right? So we said, what if we could run a tool that is fast enough to be run in the developer workflow, so it's still early. What if it could take and extract this context to be able to delineate where there is real security problems in the code that you're using versus all the dormant code that is unused. And we could not just tell you where the problem is, but we can find you definitive paths to fix it that don't break your applications or cause collateral damage. That would be nirvana. And so in order to solve this problem, we had to build a very deep call graph of your application. What it essentially does is understands the usage of code and functions and methods, not just in your first party code, but your first party code calls libraries. Those libraries call other libraries. And so you have a very complex graph. To calculate that graph and create that graph at scale with speed takes a bit of rocket science. To solve that, I hired 13 PhDs, world-renowned experts in the world in program analysis and AI, because it's a hard technology problem that had never been solved before, and we cracked the code. And so that essentially produced this concept of reachability analysis. So now, if I tell you that there's a problem, that means I have identified that it is reachable in the context of your application and can be exploited. And I can tell you where you need to fix it and how that fix is going to work.
And also the severity, the impact.
The ability to exploit, exactly, all of that.
Yeah, this is like uninvited friends to the party. You
right.
keep check on them and you'll be like, okay, if this guy comes in, we really have to pay a big price. So just don't bring him to the party.
Totally.
Okay. All right. So, that being said, I do want to Yeah, do you want to talk about any specific products in Endor Labs that you're particularly proud of, that you're building in future, or which the listeners would be interested in? Yeah.
Look, 4 years ago, like I said, when we started, we didn't know exactly how fast AI coding agents would come and when they would come and the impact they would have. But today, the number one use case of AI is agentic software development in any enterprise on the planet. It's a push from the board, push from the CEOs. And what most organizations are trying to figure out is, how do I put the paved roads or like the guardrails, the governance, so I don't slow down this adoption of AI coding agents, but put the security guardrails. And I would say that the number one use case for us and focus as a company is not just how do we use AI to make our products more effective, but how do we help companies adopt AI coding assistance to increase their software development velocity by also improving security at the same time. So I would say that is probably the number one focus of the company. In the process of solving these problems, what we have uncovered is our mission actually goes broader, which is we look at ourselves as anything that sits between the developer's laptop where they write code all the way until they have a shippable production grade software ready to be deployed in the cloud or wherever they want to deploy it. Any security issues that fall into the realm of, again, secure software development fall in the purview of what Endor Labs is and will solve. And that's what we do. So we're unifying the capabilities that customers typically have had to go get multiple vendors to solve for. We're doing them with utmost depth and the best of, like I said, static analysis techniques, program analysis, and harnessing the power of AI and LLMs. And we're taking a lot of what in cybersecurity has been manual triage workflow and automating it such that LLMs can do a lot of that investigative, remedial workflow. And essentially what you end up with is code that where you've identified the problem, you've identified the fix, you've created a pull request, developers can accept it and send it. That's going to be the future of secure software development.
Amazing. So I'm having goosebumps here. But then let's come back to the founder, that you are a serial entrepreneur, that you are. You seem to have a playbook. You know exactly where the inflection point is. You're one of those people who knows that this is coming, and you sense it. So what is your playbook? Honestly, you did it with transition to cloud, and then multi-cloud, and then now AI for coding. I mean, these are massive markets. So what is Varun's playbook? How does he do it?
Look, I'll caveat by the disclaimer that past is no guarantee of future success.
Yes.
That said, I think it comes down to fundamentals. Like if you listen and observe carefully around you, you will get the signals of what are the mega trends, what are the pain points, what are the use cases. And I'd say while a lot of people start kind of harping right away into the technical approach and like, what am I going to technically do? I spend a lot more time on the business problem and figuring out what will unlock value. Like, with Endor, like my conversations are always about how much more developer productivity am I going to return to an organization that is a customer of Endor Labs. So it's much more business oriented. And I feel like what people want to understand is not just, hey, how cool is your tech? And how much can I geek out on it? But at the end of the day, everybody has a boss in a company, and they have mandates, and they have to look good by solving real business problems. So if I can uncover and understand what those are, which, for example, in software is all about speed. People want the fastest possible speed to ship software. And if you look at the commonality in our customers, they either are generally heavy on compliance mandates, like financial services, large banks, insurance, and others, or they're software companies whose customers are enterprises that hold them to a high standard of security, be it Snowflake or Atlassian, OpenAI, Cursor, Glean, Dropbox. And so for us, it's a P&L thing. Like your top line, you can close more business if you have less security friction as a customer selling software to enterprises. You can meet compliance obligations at a much lower cost, and you can ship code faster in your companies. That's a win. And so to me, like the playbook is simple. Go understand where the business problems lie, then go figure out how to build tech. A core part of the tech to me, and like a thesis I've had, is you could build and solve the most complex problem, but if your technology is extremely complex to deploy and to show and highlight value, that's a problem. So I'm really focused typically on time to value. What can we deliver in 60 minutes with a customer? Like, what can I demonstrate is my value in 60 minutes? And then there's a whole set of beliefs on hiring and hiring philosophy. But generally speaking, look, at the end of the day, a company is as good as the people you hire. And there's a lot of people that typically find ways to cut corners and maybe find cheaper ways to access talent and other things. My philosophy is always find the best talent, because without the best talent, you will not have the best product, and without the best product, you will not be a market leader in any category.
Yeah, I should hand it to you. 17 PhDs, oh my God.
13, but who's counting? Yes.
Yeah, but looks like you're one too, in the making. A third-time founder, and then you definitely have a PhD in building companies that sell. So tell me, what is it you learned when you sold your company the second time? Like, I know with Endor you want to go public, it's kind of like your dream, but what are some of the M&A cheat codes you think you learned?
I think a lot about that, because not only did I have the privilege of selling the company, but also at Palo Alto Networks, I acquired over half a dozen companies to build out and expand the Prisma Cloud platform over the 3 years I was there. Mm-hmm. And so I get asked this question a lot. And look, I'd say that the cheat code is, one, I always say, don't build a company to sell. If you get bought along the way, that's great. And the difference between being bought and selling is, if you're selling, meaning like you're focused, your mindset is, how am I going to sell this company? Who am I going to sell it to? When am I going to sell it to? And you're going to try to cut corners. Getting bought means you're getting acquired at your own terms, because you don't need to sell. You're building a great business. It's sustainable, scaling, it's healthy, and you're trying to find ways to continue to scale it non-linearly, more exponentially. Mm-hmm. And if somebody wants to come along the way and pay you the premium along that way, then that's fantastic. So you want to be in the position of strength, not in the position of weakness. I also think how you create your ecosystem around you along the way is important, not just for selling your company, but even from a product perspective. Like, most companies eventually are figuring out what are the complementary products and platforms that you're going to integrate into. What are those relationships you have? Do you have open lines of communication with potential acquirers? Like, do you even understand the landscape of how this evolves?
You mean the partner ecosystem?
Correct, the partner ecosystem.
Or do you also think it could be the VC ecosystem or the...
No, I think those are different. I think the VC ecosystem is the VC ecosystem. They're going to keep funding you. I think that, those relationships you want to continue to have and conversations you want to continue to build, even though you're not fundraising. I was specifically referring to the product synergies, right? And creating the partner ecosystem of the product synergies, because ultimately that will be probably the most natural place where you'll get acquired, is where 1 + 1 = 3. And you could probably see that even before you get acquired, of where those plays are. And the third thing I think is incredibly important, if you want to be bought, not sold, not sell your company, is really brand. Companies will pay a premium for a premium brand, because generally, chances are, if a larger company is acquiring you, they're behind in a particular space. They have a lot of catching up to do, and the way they can drive that credibility with their respective customers and analysts and in public markets is instilling the confidence that they are buying the best in whatever category it is that they're buying. So those are probably a few nuggets on M&A. I could talk all day about this, though.
Yeah, no, I'll take you up on that. Yeah, there's one question which bothers me. If you come across a technology which is so powerful, the bad guys have access to it. So what's your how do you go to these partner ecosystems you built and collectively figure out a way to anticipate what's coming next? Because the black swan moments, like the pandemic or the ChatGPT, it's not a black swan, but honestly, if it gotten in the hands of a bad person, it could have been a black swan moment. They can do a lot with the 10x AI capabilities. So how do you deal with that with Endor or outside in the community?
Look, I spend a lot of time on this with the industry and the security community in general, and security leaders at companies, because look, traditionally You had lots of theoretical security problems to solve for. You always have more problems than you have people and resources to fix. So you prioritize what's going to be fixed based on, are people exploiting it? If something is just announced this morning, traditionally the chances were it would be 6 to 8 months before there was mature exploits, people had figured out, built, and were attacking you. To your point with AI, it's not just us in organizations and corporates using AI. The adversaries, the attackers, the hackers are using AI. So now you've lowered the bar of what it takes to be a hacker. You have automated kind of what they could do equivalent of 10 people with AI. And so now what used to be 6 months, 8 months of attempts to try to break into an application or a platform or exploit a vulnerability, they can do it in hours to days. And so what really this means from a defensive perspective, if you're an organization thinking about your cybersecurity program, is mean time to remediation and prioritization. Like, how do I know what is the most real, most impactful things I need to fix? How do I parse through the noise? Because a large enterprise, believe it or not, will have millions of security alerts at any given time. How do I parse from the millions to the 5 that I need to fix today? And then the 5 that I have to fix tomorrow and the next day? It's hard. It's a universally hard problem, and I think a lot of attempts are being made to solve it. We're trying to solve it from a code security perspective, but you got to solve it from a cloud, a network, an endpoint perspective. But the number one thing I think thematically is security has to get closer to the engineering function and development function in companies, because
which is what you're doing.
We're helping. We're bridging the gap, right? We're making it less adversarial. We're making it more collaborative. We're shifting it early so developers can just get the signals and fix things. And the second thing is, I think every board and every CISO and CEO should be thinking about is, how long is it taking us to fix the real security problems we have in our environment? And if it's still taking you months to fix critical security issues, that's a problem. I'll give you some examples. We did a study. It turns out that you can use LLMs to create an exploit, an active working exploit for any theoretical vulnerability at a cost of about $4 using LLMs within minutes.
Oh my God.
So that's what we're up against as an industry, and that's what we have to defend against.
So look, you're one of those minority founders in the Israeli startup community here. A lot of these big companies are acquiring the Israeli startup founders in cybersecurity, especially. How did you differentiate yourself? Obviously, I can see this high quality research, and you're assimilating great talent. You're definitely having all the visionary instincts, but what was that like, and to stand out and to be acquired?
Look, I have a lot of Israeli friends in cybersecurity. I've worked with a lot of them. Huge respect. I think they have this just talent booming in from their intelligence, from their armed forces and military. And so they're learning cybersecurity earlier than almost anybody in any other country.
You think so?
On the planet, 100%. That is just natural to, the harnessing the world they live in, the environment they're operating in, and just the military system, how students get an exposure early. And so it's no surprise that you're seeing the things you're seeing. I will say a couple of things between like the Indian founders and Israeli founders that I'm kind of draw a comparison, which is I think where you're going with this is, I think the Israelis are a very tight community, and I think a lot of it is, they're very confident folks. They're very generally outspoken extroverts, tight community, really want to help each other out. It's interesting in the Indian community side, we're 1.5 billion people. We've always grown up wanting to compete because we all had to fight for our way. How many people can get into IIT? Handful. So we are all very competitive with each other, and that kind of shows up even when I will generally see an Israeli founder help another Israeli founder a lot more times than I will see an Indian founder help another Indian founder. So that's kind of generally an interesting observation. But the other thing is, a lot of Indians by nature, entrepreneurs, founders, are a little bit more introverted, more reserved. And look, company building is you have to be the loudest voice. You are the chief evangelist. You are the chief fundraiser. You are heading investor relations. And so, I am also actually a bit of an introvert by nature. But, you
taught yourself.
I've taught myself, and I've gained the confidence over the years to be much more outspoken and put myself in kind of uncomfortable situations and just figure it out.
Amazing. On that note, I have a few rapid fire questions just to get into the skin of your personality. If you didn't do cybersecurity, I'm sure you'd be doing a class in public speaking with all the skills you've got. The number of ways in which you position Endor, I've been with you just the last hour. I'm just blown away. Like you can create a good business case with so many analytical perspectives. Yeah. So I'll hand it to you. You would definitely be a public speaking coach.
Quite the opposite. In fact, if you ask my parents and my or siblings growing up, this would be the last thing. Actually, I was in India a month ago spending some time with the family, and they were joking. They're saying, when I came to college here, I could barely finish a sentence and speak properly.
Oh my God.
And, we were having a great laugh about this. So, like I said, I put myself in the uncomfortable situation, and it's a trial by fire. You just jump into the deep end of the pool and learn. But look, if I wasn't in cyber, gosh, I'd love to be on the intersection of business meets technology. Mm-hmm. Maybe that would have been venture, maybe that would have been technology consulting.
Yeah.
Hard to say, but I can't imagine my life outside of cyber.
Okay, wonderful. So, do you pick Endor or Yoda? Who's better? Yoda's my favorite. Why did you pick Endor?
It's funny. The whole story around how we picked the name Endor Labs was lots of Googling, trying to find, back pre-ChatGPT, you're trying to find a domain name and a company you can register, and it's still affordable. And so we picked it. There wasn't a lot thought given into it. The idea was, we'll change it at some point. 4 years in, it's holding stronger than ever. But it's funny, we play on the Star Wars theme a lot. All the employees here, we call ourselves Ewoks. So it's fun.
Amazing. And what is the one cybersecurity skill anybody needs to acquire to be relevant 5 years from now? Let's take two categories: the technology builders and the people who invest in technology. What kind of skills they need?
Both sides is communication. I'll tell you why. I think you expected a technical answer.
Yes.
Cybersecurity is a risk management problem at the end of the day, and if you can't communicate externally, internally, up to the management chain, down below to your peers, you're going to fail. Right? Cybersecurity is a game of influence. It's a game of
even the developers. You mean
even the developers? It is ultimately an influence game. If you are doing something and you want to fix something and you need to get other support to fix it, if you are telling somebody else to fix something, you got to communicate the reason why. And so technology is table stakes. People need to understand the tech. I think most cybersecurity professionals need to be technical. But I think communication is the number one skill that makes it or breaks it in a cybersecurity program.
Amazing. That's a surprising answer. So this question, you can be honest about this. So how much of what you learned in college is relevant to what you're doing today? And what would the coursework look like if Varun designed it?
Boy, besides the drinking I learned in college. No, jokes aside. Look, I think a meta point is well taken. I took Java classes and system engineering classes and other things, and I knew I never wanted to be a software engineer, not because I don't respect that profession. I respect that profession a lot. I just think I'd be a horrific programmer. Like I said, my calling is being in the business side of technology and understanding enough about technology to be dangerous. Being able to communicate that very articulately is my being, right? That said, I think it's a very interesting question. I talk about it a lot with friends who have kids that are in high school or going to college. It's like, what do you study? Do you study computer science? Should you be learning Java and C++?
Yeah.
Probably not,
yeah.
Right? In fact, I feel like more trade crafts of plumbing and electrical and farming might be better choices as AI takes over a lot of the tech future. Yeah. But no, in all seriousness, look, critical thinking, right? Education, where I grew up in India, was a lot about memorization. You had to memorize tables and math, and you had to memorize a lot of science and geography and stuff, right? And the US system, on the contrary, the biggest leap for me was critical thinking, critical writing, communications, other things. I do think, look, AI will do your simple things. You don't need to memorize anything. You can go in and get answers off the bat. How do you use your intuition to take a combination of data, apply critical thinking and analysis, which is not just analytical 2 + 2, but it's context awareness.
Yeah.
And I think whatever it is that teaches individuals context awareness, and whatever teaches people how to be adaptable, because everything around us is going to change every 6 months, 3 months, right? Like these shifts we have been used to that took 10 years, came every 10 years, then became 5. Now they're compressed to every 5 days. There's something new in tech that we didn't anticipate. So I think that the fundamental ways of how to be a good human being, how to be extremely adaptable, communicate well, and have good contextual awareness of your environment is probably the most useful traits. Look, I think English will become the most popular software programming language of the future.
Hands down,
so,
yeah.
I don't think you need to go be an expert in Python or Java, but just systems design, systems thinking will be good.
Wonderful. On that note, is there something you would like to tell the audience in terms of how they can collaborate with you? Here I have this amazing opportunity to have an interview with you. I got to know a lot about the fundamental shifts you're creating with your technology in the past hour, but how can people collaborate with you? I get this a lot. Whenever I bring in a great founder, people want to reach out to them.
Yeah.
What are a few ways to?
Look, I'm very active on LinkedIn, so the easiest way to find me on LinkedIn.
But what gets you really? Who are the people who get a meeting with you?
That's a good question. Look, I love talking about like industry topics, pain points, where the puck is headed. If you're just going to come to me, sell me on something, chances are I may not have an instant response to you. But if we can kind of brainstorm, create value together, just intellectual thinking, conversations around learnings. Like I said, the way you asked me, how do I inform myself on business trends and themes, or just talking to a lot of people. And so first principle conversations and thinking is always appreciated.
Yeah, amazing. On that note, I love to respect your time. This has been a fascinating conversation. A lot of cybersecurity geeks will love this, and you're truly a great inspiration. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.